Can you just introduce yourself, please, for people that don't know who you are?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Isaac Snow, a 27-year-old singer-songwriter from Southwest London.
And can you introduce your new single, Why, please?
Yeah, sure. So I guess with a lot of my music, what I've tried to do is, write about stuff which I, find meaning in, which I believe is important. And so the first two singles, the first one, And the Rain Comes, kind of focused on, mental health and sort of battling things like depression and anxiety. And the second one, Runaway, focused on kind of experiences of loneliness and struggling to sort of belong in places and struggle to find your own identity. So they were quite inwardly reflective songs where I kind of looked within myself. But the new single, Why, it's a lot more sort of outwardly reflective, in the sense that rather than holding a mirror to myself, I'm holding a mirror to society and what I perceive to be society's inherent kind of xenophobia and inherent racism. And I do believe it is very prevalent in British society, and it's kind of facilitated by a political and press narrative that normalizes sort of everyday intolerance and everyday violence against migrant populations. So, it's quite like a confrontational song in that sense, where I want to sort of expose society's prejudices.
And what inspired you to kind of, take this position as an ally and then explore this kind of topic in your music?
I guess it's something I've always sort of had a passion in, and a issue which I've always been quite involved in. Obviously, I've never had first-hand experience, so it would be wrong of me to speak about other people's experience. But it's something that I'm aware that I'm coming from a place of privilege. I'm very much aware of that. But it's something which I've witnessed in the treatment of, for example, migrant populations in Israel, where I used to live and work, where migrants are sort of, in legislative terms, labelled as infiltrators and labelled as a threat to Israeli society. And it's something where I kind of witnessed just how much that can affect someone's self-esteem, someone's confidence, and someone's sort of opportunities. And obviously, in a country like Israel, it's very much more open, and it's much more obvious. But the fact is, in the UK, it's still just as severe and just as prevalent, but we kind of just a little bit better at concealing it. And
a bit more polite.
Yeah, exactly. I think, coming from a position of privilege, as like a heterosexual white middle class male, I feel like maybe come from that position of privilege, you have to be aware of your privilege and expose prejudice where you see it. Yeah, so I was actually doing a work with the human rights NGO out there, and it was just working kind of front lines, campaigning for refugee and migrant populations there, trying to sort of conduct campaigns where they could get out of detention, and then also just facilitate family reunion as well. So helping people to get out of Israel and to be reunited with family members overseas. But yeah, I think that maybe that experience kind of lit a fire in me, just because the sort of racism and prejudice is so stark, and it's just so obviously detrimental to the way people are able to live their lives there. I guess I made very close friends with sort of community activists there as well, and they educated me about their cause, and they helped me to feel more informed.
That sounds like a really interesting kind of place to have experienced these things.
Yeah, for sure. It was. But then, obviously shocking at the same time. I mean, like going back to London as well, which is where I've lived for like the last few years. I feel like it's progressively got worse and worse in London. People's attitudes towards not necessarily just the label migrants, but also towards specifically refugees and asylum seekers, is something which was very, very was bad pre-2016, but has got significantly worse since 2016.
Yeah.
The way that Nigel Farage manipulated the refugee crisis in order to win the Brexit. So the thing that I always kind of mention is, you remember the billboard? It was the billboard campaign. The strapline was like breaking point, and it was him saying that we should vote for Brexit to stop refugees and asylum seekers coming to the country to seek safety. And that campaign, I feel like, was responsible for so much of the sort of intolerance towards refugees and asylum seekers, and it's just got worse and worse, and especially than the last 3-4 months. Like the narrative of Priti Patel, people now being put in army barracks as soon as they arrive into the UK as well. Asylum seekers who are in hotels are being harassed on a daily basis by far-right groups. I feel like we're kind of reaching a crossroads now, which is why I feel like this song maybe is important, just to raising awareness that we are reaching a crossroads now, and people kind of need to just decide which side they want to be on.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. Have you done any kind of refugee or humanitarian work?
Yeah, I've done some obviously some work on volunteering within the UK. I can't really say the names of the organisations.
That's fine.
But yeah, I've done some frontline work and frontline volunteering in the UK. So I'm very aware of how the issues are sort of affecting people within the UK. From my perspective, I guess it's important not just to sort of witness how it is affecting people, but also just to listen to people.
Hey everyone, so at this point we had some audio issues because of Zoom, but the podcast continues, and the question that is cut off at the start of the next segment is just me asking whether Isaac had anything else to promote or discuss.
I guess just for people to kind of keep streaming the video, the video is still very, very new. It's still very, very fresh. And one thing I will say, is if you go on my Facebook page, my artist Facebook page, you'll see that the reason I was making this video, is kind of just expose the fact that racism and xenophobia exist in the UK. If you go on the comments section on that post, you'll see that people have basically just proved my point. The amount of sort of vitriol, abuse that I've received, people referring to refugees and asylum seekers as rapists, murderers, child molesters, all in the comment section of the page. Yeah, and so people have just proved my point, and I guess if there's anything that I wanted to plug rather than just my own music, it would actually just be people to go and educate us, people to sign up to organizations like JCWI, who have a stand up for asylum campaign, Choose Love at the moment, who are doing a huge petition for the European High Commission to start creating safe passages for people to enter Europe, and also for refugees. A huge campaign as well in the UK for fairer treatment of asylum seekers from the Home Office. So if there's anything that I kind of wanted people to sort of take maybe from this podcast and from my video as well, is just to start taking action and just to start being proactive, because I think it's when we are passive that the far right will sort of just take over, because as you'll see on that post, they are incredibly vocal about their views, and it's time for us to start to counteract that.